again, I'm Eden, PGY4, Research Admin Chief. So my talk is just going to be kind of an intro to evidence-based medicine. Now, this is a new kind of lecture series that we're doing. There's going to be some point-counterpoint lectures. There's going to be some version of journal club in there, and we're hoping to really make sure that all the residents know how to look for literature, how to appraise the literature, right? Because once you're out of residency, you don't, as an attending, right, you don't have that structured learning environment anymore. Right? So then it falls upon you to continue learning and make sure that you guys remain clinical monsters, years into practice. Okay? And hopefully this lecture will give you some tools to help you with that. And at the end, I'm going to go over some of the foam resources that we have as well. All right, let's get started. So, I know some of you are thinking, another research lecture, right? Lots of take a nap, right? No, thank you. But hopefully, I'm going to give you some practical pointers that'll help you. I love that. Great dog. All right. All right. So these are our objectives. 1, we're going to learn how to ask good questions. 2, I'm going to go over the available resources we have at Downstate as well as at Lutheran, which you guys will rotate through your second and third years. Quickly how to actually perform a literature search, and then how to integrate evidence-based medicine into your lives. So, a little scenario. Have you ever seen a patient, talked to them, did your physical exam, and then thought, you know what, I think this patient has this. I know exactly what to do. I've got a great plan. And you go to present to the attending, and the attending's like, okay, that sounds fair, but did you think about this? What about this? Is that test really the best thing for it? What's the evidence about for that treatment? And then afterward, you feel a little bit defeated, right? You thought you knew everything about the patient, you thought you knew what to do, and then afterwards you realize that there's some knowledge gaps there. There are things that you didn't even consider, and then afterwards you're left feeling kind of like this. All right, so what that is it's kind of this knowledge gap is a gap between your background and your foreground knowledge. The background is pretty much the things we learn in medical school, right? The 6 W's: who, what, where, when, why, and how. Right? So those are the basics, the background information. That's what you get from textbooks, from UWorld, right? It's that kind of quick memory that you realize, oh, this patient with this constellation of symptoms is most likely this, right? Foreground knowledge is where evidence-based medicine really comes into play. Now it's taking that background knowledge that you have and applying some more rigorous studies and things like that to the patient right in front of you, right? How does the evidence apply to the patient sitting in front of you and their unique characteristics, okay? And in order to go through that and learn foreground knowledge, we're going to go over PICO, right? So now we're going to go talk about asking good questions, and that's where PICO comes in. PICO.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember what this stands for? What's P? Population? Intervention. Intervention.
Control.
C.
Control.
Where? Comparison. Where is it?
And then
Outcome.
Outcome. All right. More. All right. There we go. Also, that's pretty good, guys. All right. Population, intervention, comparison, outcome. So, starting with population, right? So this is, what age group you're looking at. Is the gender, their comorbidities, all of that, right? The intervention, it could be a treatment, it could be a diagnostic test, it could be a physical exam finding. Comparison, placebo, sometimes there's no comparison. Sometimes it's a gold standard test like biopsy or something like that. And outcome is obviously things like mortality, modified Rankin scale, patient satisfaction, things like that. So this is your evidence pyramid. At the bottom, we've got our background information, expert opinion. These are your textbooks, all the things that we will no longer really use in some senses. Now, it's important to still build upon your background knowledge. That's why we do topic review and things like that. But in terms of evidence-based medicine, we're going to be looking for things that are a little higher level, right? So that's brings you to your case reports, your case control studies, your cohort studies, and then the gold standard randomized control trials. On top of that, we see critically appraised sources. These are your things like UpToDate, Dynamed, clinical evidence, ACP Journal Club, etc. These are things that kind of look at all the things below on the pyramid. They read through them, they figure out, and they kind of synthesize it into something that's a little more digestible. And this is probably going to be your most often used part of the pyramid, right? On top of that, we've got systematic reviews and meta-analyses. Does anyone know the difference between a systematic review and a meta-analysis?
So a meta-analysis is going to take pooled data from multiple studies and reanalyze that batch of data, whereas a systematic review is going to go through the statement of literature and grade all the evidence, usually doing like a Cochrane grading system. But it's not necessarily going to pool data the same way that a meta-analysis will.
Are they mutually exclusive?
No.
Right, so a meta-analysis kind of involves a systematic review, right? And it's taking all that data. Now they put it at the top of this pyramid, but as we go through how to critically appraise literature, you'll see that sometimes you shouldn't do a meta-analysis. Sometimes the data is too heterogeneous. So in those situations, the meta-analysis maybe shouldn't be at the top of the pyramid there, okay? And then I'm gonna go over some available resources for us, right? So this is the link to our library resource center. I'm gonna go bring it up here. So this is our library website. On the left side here, you see the EBM resources, and they break it up into foreground and background resources. Just so you guys have an idea of how to actually use this, you can click on any one of these links. Let's do Cochrane Library. So you click on the link, and not this one. Let's see. I'm going to pick one that they make you log in. All right, well, in any case, this has links to Oh, yeah, right. So when you're off campus, it'll bring you to a screen, and you just pretty much put in your downstate email address, your login, and password, and then you'll get access that way. Okay? All right. All right, so next at NYU, we have access to their library resources. I find that a lot of times, if I can't find a study through our library, NYU probably has access to it. So this is their website. You can search through PubMed here, and if you see their list of databases is pretty extensive as well. They seem to have a lot more non-medical databases, so that can help for some of your, again, non-medically related lectures and things like that. And then you can use this to search through specific journals and through PubMed itself here. And this is going to be your Lutheran login and ID as well. All right. So now, okay, so now how do we do a literature search, right? Now we have an idea of what types of studies we want to look for. And we know that we have the PEAT code, right? So that's how we're going to kind of generate our search, right? So, all right, so Cochrane Database is one of the best resources available. They do absolutely great work. They do a lot of really rigorous standards before they do their systematic review. So a lot of times they'll take a topic with, if you do just a regular PubMed search, there's thousands of studies, but they'll only include like 2 studies in their review. And that's because they have very rigid guidelines for what types of studies they have. Generally, they only take randomized controlled trials and things of that nature. So this is a great resource to use. And again, since this is at the top of the pyramid, this is kind of where you want to focus your energies when you're looking up any sort of subjects. Next is DARE. Are anyone familiar with this? So this is actually from the UK. It's a little bit tricky to use, but it has they do similar things to the Cochrane review, but they kind of summarize them a little bit more, and they regularly update them. Again, it's not like as easy to use as Cochrane review where you just have one simple search, but this is also another great resource. Next is the Clinical Evidence BMJ. This is done by the British Medical Journal. As you can see, you can search any sort of condition here, and they give really quick, synopses about best management and things to do that you can do for the patients, and they kind of give you the grading as far as how the evidence is for that. Next is the JAMA RCs. I'm not going to click on that one, but essentially the JAMA RCs is called the Rational Clinical Exams. Highly recommended. They go through the studies for particular topics like aortic dissection, and they'll tell you what are the likelihood ratios for certain physical exam findings. So it really helps you clinically when you're on shifts. Anyone know what the TRIP database is? All right, TRIP database. So this is a relatively new one. I'll show you how to log in here. So this was kind of essentially made by doctors like ourselves with the goal of making a better search engine for studies. So what you can actually do here is do a search specifically by PICO, and we'll, let's say diabetes, insulin, and then the rest you can just leave whatever. And it'll show you all sorts of stuff, right? And the nice thing about the TRIP database is they'll show you where on the pyramid the study actually falls, right? So look, you've got all these systematic reviews, and if you click on one of them, okay, so some of them will have, additional threaded links underneath that'll link you to other similar studies and things like that. So this is another great database to use as well.
Is that the same model as the Lutheran model?
Yeah, so that's the Lutheran login one. Because Downstate doesn't give us access to that. And then others, obviously, UpToDate, Dynamed, Medscape, Google Scholar. There's our evidence again. All right, so now I'm going to go into some things that are not really approved by the residency. Anyone familiar with the Pirate Bay?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So, for those of you who don't know what the Pirate Bay is, it's essentially a website that gives you access to music and movies that are otherwise licensed, and so you can illegally download these things. Residencies have not supported this part at all, nor did you hear about anything from me. So, these are two links to websites that can give you essentially pirated access to articles. I have not used Science, but I have not found a lot of studies on it that I couldn't find anywhere else. But yeah, if you're interested in how to do it, the instructions are very clear. You need a Google Chrome extension for Sci-Hub, and then Library Genesis. It's not just medical papers; it's kind of all sorts of academics. So that's also another great resource as well. All right, so now I'm going to talk about integrating EBM into your lives. All right, so this is something that you need to do regularly, right? Nothing, just comes easy. And doing like literature searches, it's a lot of work, right? So you have to actually do this pretty often in order to get good at it, okay? But it's worth it, right? Because the more that you practice something, the easier it becomes. And as you become an attending, you're going to need to do this more frequently. Like the lifelong learning and self-assessment stuff, that's something that you have to do for your maintenance of certification. It's a requirement. So it's a good idea to learn how to do a good literature search, how to appraise literature. This way, when you're reading things for your lifelong learning and self-assessment, you'll be able to say, is this a good study, and apply it to practice or not. I think it's very important for you guys when you're on your shifts, if you ever have a clinical question, to write it down, right? And I would recommend writing it in a PICO format. This way, when you get home, or on your shift, obviously, if you have time, but when you get home and you can actually do it, then you have a more targeted search already, right? And then there's always ways to actually do that. As far as writing things down, one key is make sure that you don't write down protected health information, right? Because that is a HIPAA violation. And the point, I don't know why this video says. But
What's he doing?
anyway, so the point of this video is supposed to be that with good practice, even things that seem impossible can be done pretty easily. Oh my god. Anyway, so this is a laptop commercial showing a couple of guys practicing some stuff. All right, so anyway, the Pico stuff, I would definitely write that down. Some things that I recommend for writing things down: Evernote, OneNote, Google Keep, anything where you can just quickly, jot things down on your phone. Some people like notebooks, but obviously if that notebook gets lost, then you're kind of screwed. That's why I like things that are cloud-based. Another thing that I would recommend is using PubMed. It has an email feature. So in that case, you can actually email yourself the MRN of any sort of patient that you want to follow up. And that's also going to be one of your best learning tools, right? You see a patient, you evaluated them, you did these tests. Now you want to see, did they have what I thought they had, in case you had to sign it out or something like that. And using PubMed's email feature lets you kind of keep track of that. As you guys get more familiar with PubMed, we can show you guys how to actually load up reports on all the patients that you saw or wrote notes on. But in the meantime, the email feature I think is a great way to do it. All right, this is nothing. But it's all right.
What is this doing?
I know. It's suspense.
We gotta just throw it.
We can't take this anymore.
All right, it's almost done. But in any case, so the point is practice. Practice is important, okay? As third years, when you start to have to give lectures and you're responsible for actually going through a lot of evidence for those lectures, it's good to have all the experience done early, knowing where your favorite sources are. So what I would do is I would start with those critically appraised sources, like up to date, read the article, and then at the end they've got all these references, right? And then at that point it's on you to actually go through the references themselves and see, is this a good study that I can use, and go from there. So the reason I put this in here is because it's a really ridiculous video, and I wanted to see if I can, actually use it in a lecture. No, you can't. So this is it's a laptop commercial, and I think the point of this is that it's a very thin laptop.
In between the lines.
Okay, all right. If you guys want, I can send you my copy of this and you can watch the video in its full glory. So I get a lot of questions about what I do to stay up to date. Obviously, reading the textbook, it's required for our residency, and it'll help us build that background knowledge. EMRA also provides a lot of great resources. EV Medicine is one of my favorite publications. They do really good systematic reviews, and it gives you a lot of information about a topic, and it's usually it is peer reviewed, but it's also a pretty quick read. They also have the AHC Media, trauma reports, EM, PEM, and then the critical decisions in emergency medicine. These are all available through the EMRA website. The last two, I would say, not as well reviewed as the EV Medicine articles. Sometimes there's typos. Part of it is because residents actually do submit some of these articles, so it's not as well vetted. And then foam. How do we keep up with foam, right? What I recommend is Feedly or any other sort of RSS feeder, and you can put this onto your phone. This is just a screenshot of all the different websites that I have on my feed. So obviously there's a lot of great foam out there, right? These are some of the things that I think have been very good. Obviously, people know about LAEM. Corium is the Bellevue programs. They do a lot of good stuff there. Don't forget the Bubbles is about pediatric emergency medicine. the ECG blog, lots of great EKGs to learn there. MCRIT, Scott Weingart. EM Docs is, I think, down in Texas. Alex Koifman, residents can actually write, from our program, can write articles for them and submit them, and you'll get asynchronous credit as well. EM Cases up in Canada, they do a lot of good stuff there. EM Note is a great one for reviewing literature. I forget his name, but he does a lot of in-depth reviews of literature. He knows like really good biostat stuff, so he really like breaks that down. Obviously, Life in the Fast Lane is from Australia. They've got a lot of good information there. Rebel EM is Salim Rezi and his residency. They do some good reviews. Resesame is all about critical care. St. Edmunds, actually I don't remember where they are. There's also just a good EM blog. Poison reviews for your tox. And Skeptic's Guide to EM is a very, very nerdy approach to articles. Like they really go in depth into, they actually like calculate, like sensitivities based on the study numbers and stuff like that. But it's a really great resource as well. All right, then podcasts. I'm a big fan of MRAP. I listen to it on my commutes. It's pretty quick, easy, and based on your podcast app, you can actually speed it up so you can go through episodes pretty quickly. EM Abstracts is another good one. They do these monthly reviews of all the studies pertinent to EM, and then they'll just really review them pretty quickly. And then CCPEM is Critical Care's Perspectives in EM. This is by Mike Stone, who's an EMIM Crit Care attending, I want to say Maryland, but also a great podcast. They do a lot of public, short articles and notes that are really good as well. So these are my references. I hope that you guys got something out of this. Hopefully you'll be able to use something relatively soon, or I give you some sort of new topic, poem that you guys will follow, and hopefully you'll learn something from it. All right. And I've got lots of candy left if anyone wants. Yeah. All right.